You do not need anyone's permission to chant correctly. Somewhere, a teacher told Nichiren the exact same thing was impossible. He said it anyway, while he had no temple left, no order, and no one checking whether he was right. So if he could say that with nothing behind him, what's actually stopping you? 2 messages arrived this week. Different people. Same fear underneath them. The first asked a simple question. Can chanting by yourself actually change anything? Health, money, a relationship, without joining anything built around it? The second had already tried joining in a way, sat with more than one practitioner, walked away with 3 different answers for how to chant correctly. Different pace, different posture, different words for the same 5 syllables. You've probably felt one of these, maybe both on different days. Underneath them is the same quiet accusation that your practice alone in your own room doesn't count for enough. In 1271, on a beach in Kamakura called Tatsunokuchi, a swordsman stood over a kneeling monk with a blade raised over his neck. That monk had already answered both of your messages, years before either of you were born. Not as a theory in a book, as a man with no return address, writing to people he knew he might never see again. That kneeling monk had a name, Nichiren, and the men who dragged him to that beach expected him dead before sunrise. He'd been arrested hours earlier in Kamakura on the 12th day of the 9th month, 1271. Hauled out in secret, no trial, no witnesses who could stop it. One sword, one neck. No temple standing behind him to object. Nichiren himself wrote that in that instant, he felt something like a bright light stop the blade mid-swing. He called it a miracle. Historians since have offered quieter explanations. A sudden order from higher up, a political calculation, arriving just in time. What actually happened that night still isn't fully settled. He described this night as the moment he cast off who he had been and revealed who he actually was. His own doctrine has a name for it, Hoshaku Kimpon, casting off the transient, revealing the true. Whatever stopped the blade, the execution didn't happen. What did happen was worse in its own way. 28 days in custody at a place called Ichi, then a forced walk toward the coast, further from anyone who might help him. By the time he reached the ferry crossing to Sado Island, every formal tie he had, his temple, his order, the people who might vouch for him, was already far behind him, back on the mainland. Sukahara was not a temple in any way that mattered. It was abandoned, half collapsed, standing in the middle of a graveyard. And that's where they left him. When I was living in Kamakura in Shimosa, I imagined the change of seasons must be the same in all the provinces. But during the 2 months I have been in the northern province of Sado, the freezing winds have blown continually, and while there are still days when there is no frost or snow, we never see the sunshine. In this very life, I am experiencing the suffering of the 8 cold hells. The food he was given was limited. He wrote that the people around him were savage as tigers or wild dogs. No monastery, no brotherhood of monks, no one whose job it was to make sure he survived the winter. Back on the mainland, it was worse for some of the people who loved him. Exile, imprisonment, land taken. names struck from clan registers just for being connected to him. On October 9th, 1271, before he had even reached Sado, Nichiren found a way to write a short letter from custody himself to a disciple named Nichiro and 4 others, thrown into a Kamakura dungeon the moment word of his arrest spread. A man with nothing left wrote to encourage men who had even less. Isolation did break some of them. Shobo, Notobo, Nagoyama. 3 names among his own followers who renounced their faith rather than share his exile by association, and led others to do the same. When an evil ruler, in consort with priests of erroneous teachings, tries to destroy the correct teaching and do away with a man of wisdom, those with the heart of a lion king are sure to attain Buddhahood. Like Nichiren, for example. In the same way, the Renegade Disciples say, "Though the priest Nichiren is our teacher, he is too forceful. We will spread the Lotus Sutra in a more peaceful way." In so asserting, they are being as ridiculous as fireflies laughing at the sun and moon, an anthill belittling Mount Hua, wells and brooks despising the river and the ocean, or a magpie mocking a phoenix. What Nichiren wrote next from that same island is the part almost no practitioner ever hears, the actual object he told people to put their faith in. It wasn't a person at all. By 1273, he had been moved to a slightly less brutal spot on the same island, a place called Ichinosawa. Still exiled, still watched, still, by any institutional measure, alone. That year, he wrote to a little girl, Kyo'o, the infant daughter of a believer who had never left him, Shijo Kingo. "I, Nichiren, have inscribed my life in Sumi ink. So believe in the Gohonzon with your whole heart. Not a temple, not a priest standing between her and the object of her faith. Ink, on paper, mailed directly to an infant girl." That same month, from that same exile, he finished one of the 5 works his tradition still calls his most important, Kanjin no Honzo Sho. Never seek this Gohonzon outside yourself. The Gohonzon exists only within the mortal flesh of us ordinary people who embrace the Lotus Sutra and chant Namu Myoho Renge. No priesthood required to activate it, no organization required to certify it. Just the object itself and the person standing in front of it. Follow the teaching, not men. The meaning, not the word. True wisdom, not shallow understanding. Nichiren had known this line since he was young, studying at Mount Hiei. On Sado, with no teacher left to consult even if he had wanted one, it became the whole test. Not a metaphorical test, an actual one. Nobody around him could tell him if he was chanting correctly, thinking correctly, sitting the right way. Only the teaching itself could answer that, because nothing else was left to ask. Correct wasn't what a person told you. Correct was whether you lined up with the teaching itself. He had already said something close to this years earlier in 1266, long before any of this exile happened. When a baby drinks milk, it has no understanding of its taste, and yet its body is naturally nourished. That's the image he used in Hokke Daimokusho. No comprehension required, only the act itself, repeated, sincere. Sado didn't invent that idea. Sado just proved it could survive with absolutely nothing else standing behind it. So, which instructions are actually right? The fast pace or the slow one? Nam or the fuller Namu? Neither side is lying to you. Both are describing real habits built up inside real communities over generations. The contracted Nam spread through faster group chanting traditions built for repetition at speed. The fuller Namu stayed dominant in slower, older lineages, built for weight on every syllable. Here's the detail that settles it. Even inside the traditions that usually rush the fast version, the full Namu comes back the moment the chanting slows down for formal recitation. The same community holds both forms. Neither one was ever the imposter. That's not a wrong answer sitting next to a right one. That's culture, sitting on top of the same practice. What decides correctness was never pace, posture, or pronunciation. Nichiren already told you, the teaching itself and the sincerity behind it. Your accent was never the problem. 2 messages arrived this week. You already know how both of them end. Everything you need to go deeper is at NMRKOB.com or follow the link in the description or pinned comment. You came here with 2 worries: whether solitary practice counts and whose instructions to trust. Nichiren answered both from a place with nobody left to answer to but himself. That letter from Sado passage you just heard, the full text and the history behind it, is waiting for you at NMRKOB.com, inside the Vow Keeper. Support the channel and go deeper into the letter that answered this before you ever asked it. Nobody was checking whether Nichiren was doing it right on that island. No one is checking you either. Chant. It already counts.